everyone, welcome back to A Wild Approach. My name is Macy, and today I want to talk about perfectionism in gardening. There's a phrase I like to use, and it goes something like, perfectionism is the enemy of good. There's another phrase I like even more, but it doesn't quite fit this gardening topic as well, and it is, done is better than perfect. I say that the latter doesn't fit as well as the former because, in my opinion, a garden is never really truly done. It's a constantly evolving environment, whether we like it or not. Because a garden is made up of living things, it can't possibly stay exactly the same year after year. It just can't. You may just drive yourself nuts trying. A garden is a complicated place with complicated characters, including you, the gardener. It's full of microclimates and food chains. These things inform a lot of what we plant and what we don't plant, especially in a more native plant-focused garden. A great phrase to think of is right plant, right place. I definitely agree, although I'm still learning which plants go in which places around my garden. Even though I have a soil survey from a long time ago involving my property, since I'm in the city, the soil texture itself can vary a lot from patch to patch. This soil texture variation can get confusing when picking out plants. However, I tend to focus more on sunlight requirements and try to understand the moisture levels rather than obsessing over the texture. Because of these different microclimates and soil textures, some plants may thrive in one spot of the garden but languish in another. Yes, we should try to carefully choose what we grow and where we grow it. But at the same time, it's okay if we don't always get it right the first time. Or the second time. Again, it's never going to be a perfect garden, and we shouldn't be striving for perfection at all, in my opinion. Give yourself permission to experiment. Give yourself permission to see what happens. The main thing I've known about the vast majority of my garden for a long time is that most of it is full sun and the front garden faces south. I'm also on a hill, so from the start, I mostly plant full sun-loving and drought-tolerant plants. But every now and then, I try plants that need a bit more moisture. Hey guys, can you do me a quick favor, pretty please? Could you hit the like button and the subscribe button under this video? It really helps me know which videos resonate with you guys. Do you need a short, quick guide to get started in wildlife gardening? Well, turns out I've got just the thing. I just came out with a new free ebook just for you, and it's called A Wild Approach to Gardening 101, and it's available on my website today at macylou.com/shop. It's free, so go check it out. What do you have to lose? I've learned that there are these little microclimates near my downspouts that can provide a little bit more moisture, sometimes a lot more. I'm planning to move a plant from a more dry spot near a tree to a more wet spot near a downspout exactly for this reason. As you garden, you learn how the water moves on your property. I especially started learning this after I had to dig a trench from my backyard to my front yard because of a basement flooding issue. It wasn't a deep puddle of water by any means, but it was enough water to be annoying and could have caused mold issues if we didn't fix it. So I dug a trench, which we use as a dry creek. It fills up with water in heavy rains, and the water is partially directed down the hill to the rain garden, but some of it soaks into the ground in the side yard, creating a little moist microclimate. Because of this moist area, I want to move some of my wet-loving plants to it. These are things we often learn by exploring our yards during rainstorms, during droughts, and during more stable times too. They are also things we learn as we get more experience in gardening and as we try to expand our garden beds. There really is no shame in getting it wrong or planting the wrong plants or plants dying on you. It's all part of the learning process. Sometimes I'll plant something that should, in theory, fit the conditions perfectly, but it still dies for a totally different reason. There are also the plants that we loved at one point, but they never quite did right and declined quickly. We must edit and move things around sometimes, and that's okay. It's not about perfection, but instead, it's about editing things to get closer to our goals. What are your goals? My goals are to create a garden that is both attractive and beneficial to wildlife. I want a naturalistic look with overlapping layers. I want my garden to feel like a collaborative effort between a human and Mother Earth. What I mean by that is that I want my garden to feel like it is somewhere between human-made and nature-made. Natural areas are amazing and I love them very much, but they completely lack the human touch, right? However, formal gardens that have square edges and boxy hedges are not my cup of tea either. I prefer it to look mostly natural with hints and touches of design here and there. I like it to look mostly wild with some elements that nod back to human care, but not too much human care, not a heavy hand. I don't like space between plants, so when I have space between them, it's all temporary until the plants grow in and knit together more closely. I like thicket areas and woodland areas, but I like the woodland to have the native understory too. I love layering plants and getting the full coverage of foliage and lushness. Ground covers, vines, shrubs, trees, and the perennials, it's all vital to me. If I was missing any of those layers, I wouldn't feel as welcome in the garden. However, please understand that the goal is still not perfection in any of these areas. The goal is better than it was. And truly, the garden gets better every year. Better than it was the year before, even if it's still got its flaws. Maybe there's not enough bloom from one season to the next. Maybe there are gaps in the blooming. That's an imperfection. However, we can strive to fix that issue without obsessing over getting it perfect or obsessing over failing at it. There will always be something that bugs us in our gardens. I'm convinced. There will always be something we want to change, edit, or remove altogether. Something that doesn't quite fit right or something that doesn't thrive in the spot we put it. The way I combat the human drive for perfection is to just try to make the garden better. Better than it was a few seconds ago, not even necessarily better than it was a few years ago. How do I do that? Well, in the cooler months, I remove small invasive plants or cut back large ones. I edge my garden beds. I remove annoying weeds, leaving a gap I can fill in the spring with native plants or non-invasive annuals. If you removed some nasty invasive plants, your garden is already better than it was a few minutes ago. You've already reached your goal. Everything else is just the cherry on top as you keep going and doing your garden. I have a big project coming up in the garden. Well, really, I've already started it. It's a little intimidating for me because I don't do this type of project very often and it's been a while. The project involves edging a garden bed, removing some grass, smothering the rest of the grass, and moving plants from one garden space to another. It's the moving of the plants that I don't do a whole lot, but it's way past time to do that type of editing around here. My garden is in desperate need of editing. I have lantana I need to remove, oregano to move around, bergamot to transplant to other areas, yarrow I might move, and so on. I'm wanting to install a pond. I'm hoping to have help with this project, but in order to get started on the digging of the pond, I have plants to move from the spot. Since I need to move a bunch of plants, I decided I'd put them in my new garden space I've been edging near the driveway. I also have some other plants I want to move around. Plants that aren't getting as much sun anymore would love the new driveway garden spot. It's a full 6+ hours of sun a day, so any of my sun-loving plants can be moved there. The thing is, I'm nervous. I don't often move my native plants around, and I know some of them have very deep roots. A lot of people use the autumn to do that kind of moving around, but I'm hoping winter will be okay. I plan to leave the warm season grasses alone though, because I know they don't like being transplanted in the cold. At least that's what I've read or heard. But I'm going to take a chance and move around some of the flowers like bergamot and mountain mint. Hopefully they have reseeded themselves around a little bit in case I accidentally kill these that I plan to move. I'm also nervous because the new garden space is highly visible to the neighbors and to strangers who drive by. The garden isn't at the road, but it's along the driveway and you see it as you drive by my house in the one direction. So I'm really hoping I can make the new area really attractive and that it will thrive. A lot of the plants that are in the peninsula garden need to be moved anyway to make space for the pond, and so I figured I'd take this opportunity to move a lot of those plants to the driveway garden. I need to divide some of the bergamots. It's gotten huge over the years, this one particular bergamot. I love that plant so much, so I really hope I get this right. But again, I need to remind myself that it's not going to be perfect, and that is okay. It reminds me of what I learned with Bermuda grass. Over the years, I sprayed it, I pulled it, I dug it up, yet I couldn't eradicate it. I finally accepted that I will never fully eradicate Bermuda grass from my garden. But I can definitely make it struggle. I can make it have a very hard time surviving. I've done that. It exists in my garden here and there. It thrives the most where I've not put in enough native plants or enough native plant layers. Did I mention that I've also tried wood chips? Thick piles of them. Yeah, Bermuda will grow up through that too. In fact, it loves it. In my experience, when you use thick wood chips, you may be smothering most weeds, but you're not really stopping Bermuda. You're definitely inhibiting the self-sowing abilities of your native plants, though, when you put down wood chips. So keep that in mind. Sometimes in the search for perfection, we cause more trouble for ourselves. I learned this when I tried digging out and pulling up Bermuda in warm seasons without replacing it immediately with aggressive natives. I also learned this when I tried using wood chips around native plants to keep away the Bermuda. It came back with a vengeance in the former and came back nonetheless in the latter. Spraying it might work, but you have to do it several times, and if you still have any Bermuda lawn at all on your property years down the line, it will try to creep into your beds. A trench at the front of your beds might help for a bit, but it usually finds its way in. So, I entered the acceptance phase of grief. There will always be some Bermuda grass somewhere on this property, most likely. Rather than torture myself trying to make my garden perfect and eradicate the Bermuda grass, I finally decided to focus on what was working and what progress I could make here. That was truly what helped me to keep going. If I was still obsessed about eradicating one annoying species of grass, I would have given up by now. Instead, I shifted my focus to reducing invasive plants, increasing native plants, and just keep going. Keep planting. Keep strategizing. Keep dreaming and designing. Don't let the weeds and the invasive plants stop you from gardening. They typically fade into the background during peak bloom season anyways, so think about that. This year, I hope your mindset shifts away from perfectionism, if you struggle with that, and toward just improvement. It takes years for a garden to truly come into its own, especially when you're a regular person who has to keep the budget in mind. I think most of us do have a budget to look at and to keep within. And that's another reason to not obsess over perfection. We all have limited money, time, and energy. Let's use it wisely, shall we? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think about perfectionism in gardening and how you have combated this problem. It's human nature for us to want to create a perfect space for ourselves, whether that's in our homes or whether that's outside in our garden. It's pretty typical. Like, a lot of us want to try to strive for perfection in a lot of ways, and a lot of it is subconscious. And we're not even trying to do that, but it's just, we get frustrated sometimes when things aren't going the way that we expect them to go, and when things are harder than we think they were going to be to begin with. So just keep in mind to focus on what's most important, which is reducing the lawn, reducing invasives, increasing natives, increasing habitat, increasing biodiversity, and providing food, shelter, and water for the wildlife, as well as beauty for yourself to look at through your window, and for your neighbors to see, hopefully too, over the years as things grow and develop and hopefully improve. Because that's the thing, you know, even though we're not about perfection on this channel, we are about improvement. We are about trying to make things better as we go. And hey, that doesn't mean you're not going to have a bad year where things go horribly wrong. That can still happen too. So don't feel bad if you have just a horrible year where instead of improving, it seems like you're going backwards a little bit, because you need to look at it kind of like, long term. Truly, the long term, it is improving. Even if you have dips, okay? Even if like 2024 was a failure for you and that was a dip for you on your little chart, think about it, it will go back up. You will improve. It's okay. It just takes years for these gardens to truly come into their own. So leave me a comment. Let me know what you have done in your garden and what goals you've created for yourself, so that you're focusing on the right things, the things that bring you joy, the things that help your ecosystem as a whole, and just ways that you strategize so that you're not obsessing over perfection, and so that you're not creating torture for yourself. Because it's really what we do. We torture ourselves with these ideas of perfection. So anyway, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Hey guys, don't forget to follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram. These are the two best social media accounts other than YouTube, where you can find me and you can see me post photos of the garden, thoughts on wildlife, and more. So don't forget to follow me over there. Brand new items are now available in the shop. Thanks so much to viewers like you for supporting the channel. To support the channel, like the video, comment, and subscribe. You can also support my work by buying art from me at macylou.com. Thanks for watching!